It's time to finish Gnorwen. This is the part where it stops being knitting and starts being magic, and everything comes together and the personality just pops. I've got my nose, my two arms, and my braids. We're going to start with the nose because everything's sort of centered off the nose. So I'm going to start with the nose. The way my I-cord plus decorations worked out, it is going to put the nose in a slightly awkward place in one sense that so in my original Gnorwen it was more like this, so that the decorations were much more just a peek at the side. But if I do that here, everything's going to line up with this increase line, and for some reason that's just not vibing with me today. So I'm going to pull this back and I'm going to put, but see, then I've got the two increase lines and I kind of have to center it. So play around with what you've got based on your I-cord, your decorations, the whole thing. There's really, again, no wrong way to do that, but just take into account things like increase lines, where things are lining up, all of that, because it all plays a role in the personality of your gnome. So to secure the nose, we've got two ends and we're going to use each of those ends to secure the nose in a different way. So I've threaded them through the nose and come out at the side that I thought looked most like the back, and then I tugged on those, which pushed this down into more of a sphere, and then I tied them into a knot. To secure them, I'm going to pick a stitch and I'm going to go under that stitch in one direction with one end. Now I'm going to grab the other end and I'm going to go under the same stitch but in the opposite direction, so that we've got a bit of security there. All right, so let's tighten that, see which way it wants to pop up. That looks like the way that it wants to be. Since we have two ends, the easiest way to secure the nose now is to tie knots. With toy knitting, it's always a blend of how secure you want something to be versus how the look is. If this is going to be a toy, you may find this insufficient and you may want to take one of these ends and sort of go through the nose, through the body, through the nose, through the body a couple of times. Mine will be a decoration and I am happy with how likely it is to kind of tip forward or not. It's looking really exactly the way I want it to, and it's looking like it's going to stay that way. So what I would do normally is I would just put both of these on the needle, plunge it right through, and clip them off. But to show you what I mean about securing the nose on a little bit more, we'll just quickly thread that on, come to the side. So I would go through a body stitch, or in this case a hat stitch, and then go through the hat of the nose a little bit. And that sort of secures it a little more at the top of the nose, and then we'd want to do something similar because we've already knotted it there. I'm gonna actually plunge it through the nose and come out on the bottom side now. And I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to go under a body stitch, then I need to go through the nose, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up next to the spot where the ends were to start, because that's where our first end is waiting, and then I will tie another knot. And now I'll plunge the ends through the gnome. And remember, anything you don't like, breathe deep, ask yourself, can I redo this? and then redo it. It's the finishing is a big part of gnomes. It is about 90% of the personality of the gnome is how these things attach. So if you don't like something, ask, is there an easy fix that will be a good fix? If so, just do that. But if there isn't, just breathe deep and get yourself to the point where you can redo it. So stitches come out the other side, pull taut and snip. So now we've got our nose centered, and then other things will be placed off of that. Even though the braids are going to go underneath the arms, we're still going to attach the arms first because we need to figure out what a good placement is of these so that we can nestle the braids right inside. So what you're looking for with the arms is a look so that they are not, if they're too narrow, it will look well, I mean, maybe you want to look a bit more like that, but you need to have them sort of far enough back that they'll be about halfway up, is the way I've intended it. Again, there are no rules about this, but I was thinking that between the hat and the last ridges of the body, the mittens would be a great kind of in between. It can help to think of those arms as being, if there's a midline, cutting Gnorwen in half as seen from the top, rather than placing them exactly at that midline, just a little bit to the front. We do want a little bit of slack in them so that they're not like super, super tight, because we do need to get those braids under them. All right, so I've got my arms a little bit to the front, a little bit of space in there, but not a lot. And then I'm going to attach them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a sewing needle or a knitting needle, and I'm just going to, ooh, that's a big one. I should have grabbed a smaller one. Won't really matter. I'm just going to use that to hold that there for now so that I don't have to figure out my placement. Going to thread this on. If this is going to be a toy, then you are going to need to make sure that these arms are very, very securely attached, because every child that I've ever known will want to carry the gnome by the hands here. So I suggest making sure that you really securely attach the arms. So that would look, there we go. That would look like doing a bunch of whip stitch just sort of from the shoulder into the shoulder joint. And then after doing that a few times, what I would then do is I would, let me just do one more time here. If it's going to be decoration, you don't have to be as worried about how secure your arms are. So what you could then do is lift the arm up and then attach, a lot like we did the thumb to the body, to the mitten. You go through the body and then through the arm here, and basically sew the armpit shut almost, and do that a couple times, and that'll give you yet another point of strength for the gnome arms to bear the weight. Also, if you're going to be doing this as a toy, I don't recommend stuffing Gnorwen or any gnome as much, or with weighted stuffing. So once that's tight enough, if it's toy again, I would do a little bit of a knot. So go through, make a loop, go through that loop once, twice, and then I would very close to the gnome body, get that tight, and then we plunge it through to the other side and snip off those ends. So we could just go anywhere because it's going to vanish inside. See, I'm even coming out here where there's blue, and it doesn't matter because we pull it taut, we snip it, and it just vanishes away. All right, so we've got this here, letting us know where we meant to put it, and now it's a good time to just double check. So if I do that there, have we got room for the braids? I would say so, because I can get my thumb under, and that is definitely more than the thickness of the braids. What's left? The braids. So the easiest way to do this is to first try it with the arms down to see what you think it looks like. and then flip them up to do the sewing. So your choices are sort of near the armpit or away from the armpit. I really think that placing elements next to each other seems to help with things looking a little more natural, and so I'm going to just flip her arms up. Oh, it looks like she's covering her eyes. Ah, me, I'm not ready for my close-up. All right, and then I'm just going to sew down the braid. Now, obviously, with this kind of brimless construction, as it were, we don't have a brim that's going to come down and over the top of this braid. You do want to be careful that you like the way your yarn is working. So what I'm doing is a whip stitch where you come up and you come up and over. I'm doing mine to the top of the hat, basically right underneath this first garter ridge. I'm using this exposed stitch row to grab a little bit of the gnome, grab a little bit of the beard, not the beard. Yeah, there is no beard. Surprise. I get a lot of questions about gnomes with female names having beards. I think that gnomes are magical creatures, and whether they have beards or not, they're gnomes, and they don't really care about whether females have beards or don't have beards. It's just sort of an individual gnome's choice. So I mentioned in the pattern tacking down the beard or the braid. So I did that because I just decided I was going to. If you don't, it's likely to hang down straight. But if you want to sort of have it positioned a certain way when viewed from the front or something like that, this is what I did. I made sure I liked the way it looked up top and felt it was secure. Then I put the needle in and I came down. About here is where I came up. I can kind of feel what's happening. Came up through that bit of the beard. I'm going to call it beard over and over, aren't I? Braid. And then I just went down in a slightly different spot so that I actually caught the braid. Then I did the same thing down here. Again, if this is going to be a toy, you might want to think much more carefully about how big the spaces are and whether you want them to be able to get a finger underneath or not. If it's a decoration, your options are much more open for how securely you do this. So I'm going to make sure that the tip is secured the way I want so that it doesn't tend to come up. So I'm going to do one more little bit of securing. Come up under that little bit and come back down. Now you'll notice that the way I did my instructions for the braid ties, I had them be the same color as the body, and this is just so that we don't have something competing with the mittens. But if you want to do them the same color as the mittens or in a completely different color, now is your chance to just snip off any ties you've done and with wild, reckless abandon get creative. All right, so if this is a toy, I would make a knot and then put the needle through. Mine is just pure decoration. We'll go to join my shelf of gnomes. I have a glass shelf to keep the gnomes safe from my cats. And I have definitely decorative gnomes as opposed to playful gnomes. We play with photo shoots, but we don't play in terms of swinging them around and thinking about hitting our baby brothers over the heads with them. All right, so do the second one and you're done. I really hope that Gnorwen has delighted you and that you've enjoyed the process of creating something with a few techniques we've done a lot of gnoming with. The I-cord, we use both here, and then for the thumbs. I think Gnorwen is full of creativity and a new look for gnomes. Was really tempted to take this welt and do it in a contrasting color here. And I thought that people might get a little welted out. But if you want to play around with Gnorwen and add welts at the bottom of her body, or try a contrasting welt here, the reason I went with the same color was because I wanted it to look a lot like the I-cord and kind of blend in there. But man, there's lots of possibilities with these welts, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Gnorwen and I are excited to see your finished gnomes. Don't forget to tag them with the Gnome MCal7 if this is still a mystery gnome, and with the hashtag allworkgnomeplay on Instagram at any point to let me easily find all your amazing and excellent gnomes. Happy knitting and happy gnoming.